I don't want to focus too much on Group A. I think there are more exciting groups in the tournament, like
Okay.
this next group that we're talking about, Group
Group
B.
C. Oh,
No, no, no.
sorry, I forgot the letters.
I know.
A, E, B. Group B.
B, yes, very good, very good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Group B finished with England on top with 7 points, USA in second with
Ooh.
five, Iran in third with three, and Wales in fourth with 1 point. So I think we can mainly focus on the USA for this group. But one thing I want to talk to you about before we jump into that, please tell me why Group B has demonstrated that Euro snobism is absolutely dead.
Oh my God. How much time? Um, the amount of people who discounted, or I will actually give them the benefit of the doubt for discounting the United States because in the three friendlies we had leading up to this game, we registered zero shots on goal. We came in as the second youngest team in the group, coached by a guy who I can't speak badly about him, but we all know our thoughts on him. Um, so I don't even mind that. But Iran to sleep on that team that has a very strong attack and to put Wales above them that are a one man team and thinking that that team deserved a better place in this group than Iran was just silly. All because Bale got them to Euro 2020 quarterfinal or whatever, right? Like, do we not realize how long ago that was? How Bale hasn't gotten off the bench in four of the last five LAFC games? Like, people just think because they played in Europe that they're just instantly better and they've never seen football outside of Europe. And it's just like, oh, yeah, England, Wales, Poland definitely through. Denmark has to be through. Uh, who else? Belgium. Belgium was a shock. Serbia was a shock. I mean, a lot of European teams getting upset because people. I don't think that they sleep against them, but I think the rest of the world is catching up, right? And we talked about this a little bit with the African nations, but you look at the Asian teams as well. You've got Japan topping the group of death. I think we can easily call that, right? You've got South Korea performing very well, knocking out a strong Uruguay side. I mean, the rest of the world is catching up to Europe and South America. I think it's very clear to see that. And to pretend I'm not saying that the best football isn't played in Europe because right now it is. I won't disagree with that. But that's also because that's where the money is. As money around the world continues to be added to this game in CONCACAF, in CONMEBOL, in Asia, in Africa, as money is pumped into this game and more talent is being found, the gap is going to close. The gap is absolutely going to close. Um, I'm very interested in, again, we talked about this last episode. If you haven't seen it, go check it out. I'm very interested to see the allocation of spots for each nation as they expand the uh, number of teams in the World Cup. Because if I have to sit here and watch Luxembourg and Azerbaijan playing a World Cup against Puerto Rico and the Cayman Islands, like, what's the point? You know? So let's open it up and bring in spots for Nigeria and Algeria that missed out, right? Let's bring it in for I can't pick a CONCACAF side, but let's bring it in for I believe Chile finished fifth in CONMEBOL and they just missed out. Let's give them the spot instead of giving it to another European nation who just barely missed out. Should Italy have been here? Probably. But the fact that they couldn't get by whatever, I think it was Serbia who knocked them out, or that might have been Portugal. But um, Italy put themselves in a position to not get out. That's not on anybody except themselves.
Yeah,
But I don't need to.
it was
I was just gonna say I don't need to see more small European nations in this tournament when other countries have closed the gap and deserve that spot.
It was North Macedonia that knocked them out.
Let's go. Big up Pandev.
Yeah, I don't really have too much to add there. And I don't want to waffle on about it too long, but I think you summed it up
Yes, you
pretty
do.
well. So I'm gonna switch it to focusing on the US now. Taking into
Before you do that, sorry, this is your New York Mets update.
Yeah,
As Edwin Diaz has been named to the All MLB first team, and
nice.
Francisco Lindor and Max Scherzer were named to the second team,
Very
and
nice.
the Mets got Justin Verlander. So basically, give me the World Series.
Yeah,
Thank you for your time.
it was an amazing day.
Ah,
Nice. Let's move on to the USA now. Taking into account their whole tournament, I'll ask you the hard question. Was it a success or was it a failure?
for the United States, huh?
Mm-hmm.
So how much time do you have?
I
Out
got
of
a lot of
curiosity. So listen, the final eight or the quarterfinals was a pipe dream. If we got there, we overachieved. Getting out of the group, I think people expected, but not as many people would have been shocked if we missed. I think round of 16 was the ceiling for this team, and they got there. It would have been a miracle to beat out Netherlands and Van Hal, and we had the ability to do it. By the way, we had our chances. We created a lot of really good chances. Yes, Van Hal sat in a little bit and allowed us to play. Um, I disagree with some of the coaching choices that came from Greg. I don't think we needed to bring a super false nine who's going to drop in between my midfielders to receive a ball, lay it off, and just start running when we really needed to stretch a team who was going to sit in and be compact anyway. Um, that's my personal opinion, but I'd say overall that this was a success for the United States. Getting out of the group shows that as the second youngest team, I believe, in the tournament, either first or second. I believe it's second. As the second youngest team in the tournament, we were able to beat out a strong Iran team, by the way, a very very competitive Iran team, and Wales, who on their day, which was 4 years ago, could have been a very big opponent. Right? We went toe for toe and outplayed the fifth ranked England. Should have gotten 3 points from that game. What you see out of this team is the potential. The If we had 4 more years, screw it. If we had 1 more year, 6 more months, would we finish that chance against England? Yeah. Would we not give away that penalty to Wales? The little things like that are the things that you know are going to fix themselves as we grow in this golden generation. 2026 is a very, very bright future. We need another center back. We need a true number 9, and maybe a winger who creates a little bit more on his own. Pulisic, and by that I don't mean we don't need a new one. We just need one of them to step up and do it. Hooli or Weah. I'll call it a success. I think we achieved the goals that were logically set out for this specific group. 2026, those goals are much, much higher. Those goals are quarterfinals, semifinals. Has to be. Doesn't matter who we draw. Has to be.
Yeah, I think that's pretty well summed up. I'm gonna call it a success also, but I will caveat that by saying that I think we did the bare minimum to call it a success. I think I actually think this team, talent wise, had the potential to go farther than we did, but I think tactically, Greg held us back. I mean, I will give Greg his due credit in that I think he lined the team up really well at the start of like every single game. When maybe the only exception is the Netherlands game, but even then, I don't want to say that too much. I But in the group stage, I feel like he knocked it out of the park all 3 games. He lined them up super well, and everything went great for the first 45. And then it was as soon as he had to make decisions in the game, it just fell apart. He would either wait too long to bring on subs, or he'd bring on the wrong subs, or he would change the tactics and just kind of sit in more and absorb the pressure. And that's when the team just folded eventually. We saw it happening against Wales. We saw it happening against England and almost happening against Iran. He was not ambitious enough in the attack, and it showed because we scored 3 goals the entire tournament, which is very on par for Greg. He just does not know how to develop an attack. This team is awful at attacking. Um, for me, I feel like what I noticed in terms of the attack throughout like the tournament, it felt like we were trying so hard to set up a goal where all we had to do was like tap it into a wide open net. It felt like we were trying to make every pass so that we could just find the wide open tap in. Where I wish that we just sometimes just had a hit. I wish it wasn't like there's a little bit of space, like just take the space and have a hit. Not let's try to get cute with it and try to find someone across the box so that they have a tap in because it just didn't work. Um, and I think Matt had sent in actually that was a meme, but I think it kind of also summarized like some of the tactical parts of it where it felt like in the Netherlands game in particular, where we were just crossing the ball into the box a lot. And I feel like that was with other games as well. We were trying to like cross the ball into the box a lot, where we just don't have a striker other than Haji, who only played 1 game and subbed on for a little bit for the Netherlands game, where the striker is going to be able to win the ball in the air. Like Jesus Ferreira is not going to win much in the air. Sargent isn't going to win much in the air. And I don't think Pooley is either. Maybe Weah could, I'm not sure, but um I just don't think the tactics were right in the attack. I don't think our ceiling was that we were going to be able to win the World Cup. I think our ceiling was probably quarterfinals with the right tactics, but I'll still call it a success. We got out of the group. Ranking wise, it was one of the toughest groups, even if, not every team played up to that standard. I and I one of the main reasons I'm going to call it a success is because I'm still very optimistic and hopeful for the next World Cup.
Yeah, I agree completely. I think I think you hit it on the head with the tactical ideas, right? Greg got, and this isn't a knock on Greg, by the way. Greg got out coached by the one of the greatest tactical minds in the game of football. Uh, that's not really a shame. What's a shame is to reference Louis Van Gaal's comment. The U.S. never tried anything different. We changed our tactics and they kept doing the same thing. And he's right. We kept going with the same attack, the same idea, the same mindset. And the Dutch just took it and they're like, okay, we know how to defend against this and we're good at it. So keep trying. And that's the issue. And that's why Greg can't, and this is my question to you, does Greg continue? This is why Greg can't continue, is because he's shown time and time again. You mentioned the sub patterns, right? Gio Reyna, everybody calling for Gio Reyna, was quite clearly not 100%. You watch him in that Dutch game. He was not 100%. Whether Greg told him to be hurt, I don't care. It was quite clear that he was not fit enough to play, which happens. Accept it. It's not on Greg. It's not on his inability to make subs. It's not on his I need to play MLS players. His fitness kept him from the World Cup. That's it. The fact that he was even there and not replaced with somebody, Paul Arriola, we're talking to you. You're telling me Paul Arriola couldn't have given a better showing than Jordan Morris uh, in that which game he came in the Wales game, didn't he?
He came in Wales and the Netherlands game, I believe.
Yeah, I think Paul Arriola gives a better fight there. You know, he talks about needing speed and power. That's Paul Arriola's game. It's also Jordan Morris's game, but Paul Arriola does it. Um, So it goes all the way back to his player selection. I get that. Shaq Moore did not prove that he needed to be on the field. He had a very bad showing. I'm not going to try and hide that. Um, he can't come back because he doesn't see the game as well as somebody else might be able to. I think Greg knows how to will his team to get results. You look at his resume and you see Gold Cup, Nations League, victorious over Mexico time and time and time and time again, which is something that has never happened in the history of this sport. Um, Playing youth players, youngest team in the second youngest team in the group, getting out of this group that people did not think, including myself, did not think was going to get out of this group. He knows how to get certain results. But when it comes down to playing the big boys, when it comes down to playing Netherlands, when it comes down to playing, if we had to go against Argentina, France, England, we did well against, but I think that's because Gareth Southgate messed it up. It wasn't Greg, it was Gareth. You go up against the big boys and you need to be able to see the game better than he does. So I think Greg still has a future in football. I think he's a great coach for specific types of teams, just not this team when we have our golden generation ready to go.
Yeah, he 100% cannot be the coach for the 2026 World Cup. It would be an insane mistake for the federation if he were to stay as the head coach. And that's not me trying to make a knock on him as a coach. I don't love him as a coach, but I don't think he's a terrible coach. I mean, like you said, look at his resume. He has not really had a step wrong in the entire time he's been a head coach. Yes, it hasn't been pretty, not in the slightest. Games are usually like 1-0 or at most like 2-1, but he got a result in every game that he needed to. He won the Nations League, he won the Gold Cup, he qualified us for the World Cup, and he got us out of the group. He did everything he was supposed to do. It wasn't pretty. I don't think he's the guy that's going to take us into the next, I'll call it level, where you're competing against these big European nations like the Netherlands and the Argentinas and the Portugals and the Brazils. But he did what he needed to do. I agree with you. I think he has his place in club football. He'll be somewhere else. But someone else definitely needs to take the reign and get this team prepared for 2026.
Just before we move on, I do want to reference something you just said about how it wasn't pretty. There was never a day in his job that somebody said you needed to play good football. When U.S. Soccer hired Greg, it was with one job and one job only: get to the World Cup, win trophies along the way, but get to the World Cup. Do not let 2018 happen again. So what he did is he instilled this mindset in a team of win at all costs. Doesn't have to be pretty. Doesn't have to look beautiful. To quote Gerard Struber, doesn't have to be sexy, but it has to get done. That mindset won us Nations League, Gold Cup, Mexico games, gets us into the World Cup. That mindset gets us out of the World Cup. That mindset doesn't beat the top teams. You need talent and tactics to beat the top teams. Now that we have that base, that win at all cost base, now we can bring somebody else in who can use the players, the tactics, the attacking talent that we have to get the results against the big teams.
I'm going to use this as a transition point into Group C, but I do want to say I don't think we can harp too much longer on wins over Mexico when if you were to put them on a line graph and just say like progress and time, Mexico is regressing. I think we've talked about this a bit before. This team is just they're aging out of their star players, and the next group of guys that are coming in are not at that same level. So the team is just regressing right now. And the US is on a really good progression. We've seen the team grow. The team is super young, as you said, second youngest team at the World Cup. They're only going to get better. I think the team already is stronger than the Mexico team. and we're only going to get better. I feel like they're only going to regress more once they lose guys like Ochoa, um, and Raul Jimenez. So I don't know if we can say anymore that like, oh, we consistently beat Mexico now, because I feel like that's just kind of becoming the bare minimum of what we need to do. We should be the top team in CONCACAF, no question. If Mexico is regressing, we should be the top team. I know Canada has a couple of good players and they're kind of growing and getting better as well. We need to be the top team in CONCACAF, and that needs to be our standard, and that shouldn't drop. I'm not saying that that's necessarily like what it should have been under Greg, but I think moving forward, that needs to be our standard. And if you look back, like if we repeated what we did this qualifying again in the future, I feel like it would be disappointing, because
I agree.
we scraped through an international like playoff game just on goal difference. I mean, we were like 4 or 5 goals away from having to go play against. They played New Zealand or something. I forget who they played,
Yeah. Yeah.
which would have that would completely flip around the narrative for Greg. Because like you said, his goal, don't let 2018 happen again. He was like 4 or 5 goals away from potentially having 2018 happen again.
Yep. Yep. Like I said, he went with a defense first mindset because he's a defensive player, defensive coach, right? Now that we've got that base of how to defend well, it's time to bring in somebody who can fix the other side of the game.
We could dive into this on another episode. I want to drop a little hot take before we move on to Group C. I would like to see someone else other than Jesse Marsh as the USMNT coach in 2026. I don't know who yet, but I think I would like to see someone other than Jesse Marsh.
All right, we are definitely never talking about that. I don't want to ever hear that come out of your mouth ever again. Jesse Marsh is our Lord and Savior. You are wearing the scarf of his best team ever. Don't you dare
Well, I'm
disrespect.
glad his best team ever was like 4 or 5 years ago. That's
Don't
what I
you
want to
ever.
hear. That's what I want to hear when my coach 8 years later is taking charge. His best team was 8 years ago.
That man won 3 supporters shields with Alex Mouille playing right mid. Don't you dare disrespect the GOAT. That's right. I got him into another episode. That's right.
I mean, I would expect you have to get him in every episode now.
I'm about to say, we got to be running on 7 or 8 episodes straight now.
It's something like that, yeah. And
We're
you
awesome.
can't just say his name. You have to actually incorporate him into the episode.